Hello, Professor Danner and fellow classmates. My name is Jake Graves. I'll be doing my video book report over Charles Spurgeon's The Soul Winner. Spurgeon was born in England in 1834 and he died in 1892. In 1854, Spurgeon began his pastorate at the New Park Street Chapel in London, where he would remain for 38 years until his death. Spurgeon was just 20 years old at the time, which is mind-blowing to me because I'm 3 years older than he was when he first started his pastorate, and I'm in no way capable of taking a lead pastoral role anytime soon. The guy was insanely gifted and used by God in just really incredible ways. Reading The Soul Winner has helped me to see some of Spurgeon's style and personality when preaching. The Soul Winner is basically a collection of 15 of his lectures and sermons, all focused on the topic of evangelism. Over and over again, Spurgeon emphasizes the importance of preaching the gospel. He says that what you win people with is what you win them to. So if you win people with gimmicks and shows, that's what you're going to win them to. But if you preach Christ to them, you will win them to the love and mercy of Christ. Spurgeon also lectured about always preaching the gospel in full, not just the parts that are pleasing to the ear. It's so common to walk into churches today and hear this health and wealth gospel and pastors who only teach about God's love but never mention anything about judgment or sin. Spurgeon says that he who sent us to win souls neither permits us to invent falsehoods nor to suppress truth, and that withholding the doctrine of total depravity prevents people from true healing because they do not know the disease under which they are suffering. They are never truly clothed because nothing is done towards stripping them. Spurgeon is saying that we shouldn't sugarcoat the gospel message in order to bring more people in or because we want to be liked. Our job as pastors is to preach the message in its totality and to trust God with the results and trust that He's working in the hearts of our hearers. In the second and third chapters, he discusses the qualifications for soul winners, both Godward and manward. He lists characteristics such as holy character, humility, earnestness, and a lot more. And one of my favorite sections is when he discusses the characteristic of faith. He says that one must have faith in God, of course, but you also have to have a strong sense of faith in your calling if you want to be used successfully by God. Spurgeon says, "Dear friend, if the Lord has opened your mouth, the devil cannot shut it. But if the devil has opened it, may the Lord shut it up." And he also shares a story about a young student who approached him saying, "I've been preaching now for some months, and I do not think I've had a single conversion." Spurgeon replied to him, "And do you expect that the Lord is going to bless you and save souls every time you open your mouth?" "No, sir," said the student. And then Spurgeon remarked, "Well, then that's why you do not get souls saved. If you had believed, the Lord would have given you the blessing." In his fourth chapter, which is titled Sermons Likely to Win Souls, he says that pastors should take into account who their listeners are and teach in ways that interest, instruct, and even impress them. Pastors should also take out of their sermons everything which is likely to divert their listeners' attention away from the real object, which leads to his next point, that the best sermons are ones that are the fullest of Christ and that appeal directly to the heart of their listeners. His final point, and one that I think is one of the most important, is that sermons that have been prayed over are most likely to win souls. In the next chapter, which is also labeled chapter 4 in my book for some reason, it's called Obstacles to Soul Winning. The obstacles that he lists are indifference, unbelief, delay, carnal security, despair, the love of sin, self-righteousness, worldliness, and bad habits, resorts, and company. One quote I loved in this chapter when talking about the indifference and lethargy of sinners is this. He says, "I would far rather have a man an earnest, intense opposer of the gospel than have him careless and indifferent." And so I think this is so true because even if people hate religion or God, they'll still generally entertain a discussion about it and want to defend their views in front of you. But people that just don't care at all either way, it's pretty hard to gain any momentum towards those spiritual conversations with them. The next chapter is called How to Induce Our People to Win Souls. In it, he gives some tips for young pastors as they begin their ministry in the local church. He tells them that this is a work of time. He says, do not expect to get in the first year of your pastorate that result which is the reward of 20 years continuous toil in one place. And so this made me wonder how long the average tenure of a pastor actually is. A survey done by Dennis Cook of Lifeway said that it's only 3.6 years. And so this was really sad to me to think about the great amount of time that it takes to build deep and genuine relationships with others, and the great amount of trust that has to be developed before you can really have much influence over people. And so it's just sad that the state of that pastors are in right now. The next chapter is chapter 6. Is a sermon on 2 Kings 4:29 through 37, where Elisha raises a child from the dead. In this chapter, Spurgeon applies it to our calling to raise God's children from their spiritual deaths today. Skipping forward a few chapters to chapter 12, Spurgeon teaches on Proverbs 11:30, which says, "He that winneth souls is wise." In this chapter, Spurgeon explains why this is such a wise objective for Christians to have, and he explains further that this is not solely the responsibility of ministers, but for all of believers. Spurgeon will go on to end his book with chapters on instruction and encouragement in soul winning. Spurgeon used Matthew 4:19, where Jesus says, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Here he expounds on the miracle of God of turning fish into fishers, the saved into the saviors, the converts into the converters. He also uses James 5:19 through 20, which talks about showing a sinner the error of his ways and converting him to the truth, while in the process saving him from the punishment of his sins. Spurgeon uses this to encourage soul winners to continue preaching the gospel of Christ and the importance that it not only has for their own life, but for all those that they're going to come in contact with. And so overall, I thought this was a really incredible book. It's the first I've ever read of Spurgeon's, and I have to say it's probably not going to be the last. While reading it, I can just feel the passion in his voice just jumping off the page. This book would be edifying for any Christian, but especially for ministers, and I would recommend this as a must-read for every person going into pastoral ministry. It's going to bless you and those under your leadership for the rest of your life. Thank you.